a bit.
We are
Hello,
live.
everyone in YouTube land. Welcome.
Yeah, should anybody be watching, we've gone live. We've been chatting and just forgot to go live.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, big goose egg up there. Nobody watching right now.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it does. I mean, we could talk about that at some other time, really. But what do we want to do with this?
It doesn't cost us anything either financially or in terms of the show quality to broadcast it. So
no, it's not. It's not that. It's like getting people to join us and talk about things.
Yeah, we could try. It's Saturday morning here. Probably a tough time to get people to.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Spend a couple hours on something that's work related.
Yeah, true. And here, of course, Saturday evening early, so everyone's ready to go out now. So we missed it.
Yeah.
We need to be.
So yeah, we could talk about ways to promote it, but I'm kind of happy with it being whatever it is.
Yeah, me too, for that matter.
Okay. Well, you want to run through it?
Yep, let's do that.
Okay, so the ident I'll record after we talk, so I know what to ident about. You start the welcome this time. Hi, everybody, and welcome to.
Well, it says here, Shel to begin.
Oh, did I just copy that from? I may have just copied.
You probably did just copy and paste the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I do it.
Okay.
These are my written notes, not the rundown. Right.
Okay.
I start with last month's as the basis for that.
Yeah.
I have a listener comment. It's from Tom Murphy.
Okay.
So I'll read that. It's about our Facebook coverage last month.
All right.
I'm briefly going to mention that there's an FIR interview coming. It's those two researchers on narrative-based strategies not being effective in some cases.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into any detail. Just let people know I'm doing that interview on Tuesday.
Yep.
Also going to mention that Circle of Fellows is on the 21st, dealing with communication ethics. Again, I won't spend any significant time on that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have the Polite Mail promo, and then we jump into your first story.
Yeah.
I
found it interesting. It's very interesting because you can see that this is in train now. The technology is there. People are doing it. The article's quite good, actually. But it's funny doing it, reminding me of Eric Schwartzman, because this is all about the entertainment industry. It's the kind of story he would do if he was still sending us in reports. But it's interesting. Some of the examples are great. What companies are doing, what organizations are doing, and then the caveat at the end of it all, and indeed the worry in people's minds about actors in particular about getting replaced by computers. You don't need people sometimes to make much of their voices. Some of the examples certainly point in that direction. What lessons are there here for communicators? That's probably the bit where we'd have a chat about it all. So I'll be asking you to say. So what do you think, Shel? What's the message here for communicators?
And we saw the early versions of this. Remember, there was that program, I think it was from Adobe, where you could record something and then see the text of it and change a word, and it would speak that.
Yeah. Very rudimentary. But
we knew at that time it was going to evolve into something.
Right. And this is now, today, exceptionally sophisticated what can be done. The three examples I've got to mention truly are extraordinary.
Yeah, I'll pay attention to those, and we can talk about some of the nefarious uses to which this can be put, but also some of the good stuff corporate communicators can probably do.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm talking about the use of organic social media marketing, getting away from this slick, overproduced stuff. There are three stories here. I'm going to spend most of my time on one that is using some influencers to try to attract remote workers to come live in their town as long as they can live wherever they want.
Okay.
One thing I'm not going to get into here because it's kind of getting into the weeds, but we have a couple of people who were told they could be remote and they moved out of the area. And that's going to affect their salaries because salaries are based on regional salary bands. And if they're in a lower cost of living, then their salary goes down. I think, there are things that remote workers need to consider when they move. But in any case, they got some of these influencers. They've actually had them come into town and live there for a week, do what they want. They prearranged a couple of things for them to do, but mostly they were left to do whatever they did. But they posted on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and got lots of lots of views. And the reason is sort of this what if mentality. What if I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, near the beach, where it's a lot cheaper, right? So that's one. And one is Clubhouse. This is a lawyer.
That first one you mentioned about the influencers, I couldn't read that even incognito. I'm a subscription only. It's a subscriber wall. That seems pretty hard. Even incognito windows, it wouldn't let me in at all. In 3 different browsers. I don't remember what
site that was.
Ad Age.
Oh, yeah, I'm an Ad Age subscriber.
So I'll listen to what you say. That's all. Okay. So that's fine. Yeah.
The second one was the Clubhouse. The lawyer who started the every Thursday show that led to this marathon 17-hour episode. People just kept.
Didn't hear about that. Okay.
Well, it's in there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not paying attention to Clubhouse. That's probably why. So
yeah. No, but it's in the rundown. I mean.
Yeah. No, but I haven't heard that example you're mentioning.
Yeah.
Before
so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but just the idea that, if you have an interesting topic and you build a following, then you could end up, what she had was 3 celebrities drop in and then raise their hand to come up on stage and talk. And it wasn't because they were celebrities. They genuinely had an interest in this topic and had questions.
Got it.
Right. And that attracted more people to come in and listen. And she's a lawyer, right? So, and then there's brands that are going into TikTok and creating what they're calling content creator class. These are, 8, 10, 12 creators who are already fans of the product, who bring different perspectives, and they're having them create TikTok content that they're already inclined to create as influencers. So just 3 examples of getting away from the Kim Kardashian getting $500,000 to hold up your product in an Instagram shot.
Cool.
And going more organic.
Yep.
Okay. You have got the remote workers.
Yeah, it's a survey from the Future Forum Pulse survey, and that forum is backed by Slack, which I found actually quite interesting. Interviewed people in the US, UK, Australia, France, Germany, and Japan in July and August, and this is about the findings, which I think it is quite interesting. So, I mean, I've got an opinion on it, as I know you will have, but to me, it's a simple opinion. Involve your employees in this. Why would you do this without? And that's probably what I'm going to say. I find it hard to understand an organization who would go into planning this in light of everything we know, even the stuff that's just talk. But that people are going to quit if they can't do this, and these hard views being expressed. That will they translate into action? Who knows? But here's a great example, and there's a survey here that tells us some things. So, and yet I hear anecdotal stories like this. Companies just, we've done a policy. Do you talk to employees? Nope. It's like they say, so why would we want to do that? So yeah, interesting. So we can chat about that.
See, Chip is waving hello.
Hey, Chip.
He says, getting ready to go shoot an American football game, so can only stop long enough to wave hello. I hope you're shooting with a camera, man.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Based on the news lately.
I saw some pictures you posted on Facebook, Chip. Football match. Very interesting with the kids. Great photos. Okay. What's next? Dan York?
Dan York's after that. I've listened to his report, so I'll be able to.
I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I'll be able to say 2 or 3 things when it's over, just so it sounds like it belongs there. Yeah. Chip says 2 cameras.
Great.
Thank you. That's to you because you looked at his pictures. I haven't seen them. I'll have to go look. All right. My next story is from Jakob Nielsen's Nielsen Norman Group blog. It just resonated with me because it's stuff that I'm dealing with now, but it's 9 ways to get employees to engage and share on an intranet. Some of them are things that have been around a while, but the collection is good. So I just thought I'd run through them very quickly for all our internal communication listeners.
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought, that's right up your alley, that topic.
It's something I have to deal with because I am stuck with just an intranet as the primary communication channel, that and email.
Yeah.
I
mean, this is a great list of of things that you should do.
Neville, are you hearing echo?
Nope.
No, Chip says it doesn't sound like you were on your usual microphone. A lot of room echo.
Really? Do Do you hear that, Chip?
And he's talking about me.
Oh, okay. This is my microphone. It's right here.
Yeah,
so
this is what I'm on.
Is
Although,
it yours or mine? So is it yours he's talking about?
Yeah, mine. Let me make sure I am actually on. Aha, I'm not. I'm on my life cam mic. Thank you, Chip.
The little details that you don't notice till after the show's recorded.
Yeah, Chip, is that better?
Oh, that sounds smoother.
Okay. Well, I'm glad he said something.
Yeah. I didn't notice it because, well, not because, I just didn't notice it.
I have
You
no
sounded
idea
fine to
why
me.
it would have switched to that. I am default on my Yeti.
You're running Windows 11? I've had some weird little things that glitch that showed up in the last week in Windows 11. One of them is this. I had that as well, where the microphone was switched to the monitor built-in one. And why did it do that? I said to myself. So,
I haven't had Windows 11 running for a week, so
yeah. I mean, but it was also in Windows 10, so this is a throw over Windows.
I was going to say today I learned
Windows 11 is fantastic, but I love Windows 11.
I'm enjoying it so far. Yes,
lovely.
Okay, so you've got the Chief Metaverse Officer.
Well, this to me was another interesting, a very timely one, but the focus of this is quite intriguing. Vogue Business, Vogue magazine, the fashion magazine. So it's business all focused in the fashion industry. And there's an industry sector that is all about creativity, visual, and so forth, that they have their needs like any other business. So the angle is on them. So all the people they've lined up to give their opinions and various quotes are in that industry. It's a very interesting take. It's probably not much different to if we found someone who's the communications chief at an industrial firm manufacturing, I don't know, steel ball bearings. We'd hear similar things too, I bet. So is it time? Is the question? Is the question is the thing? I think it is, given the examples they're talking about here. Others, I sounded out 3 people I know, none of whom agreed. Said no, we don't need a chief metaverse officer. Too early. Well. And I thought, wow, I think this is the time when you want to get one, when it seems to be too early.
We'll talk about that because I think some companies are just going officer crazy. Do you need somebody in charge? Yeah, maybe. Do you need it in an officer position?
Well, I'm not paying attention to labels like that. But job
officer has a very specific meaning.
Sure, I get that. But officer is used by everyone for everything. So I don't believe they do have very specific meanings unless you're executive. Like CXO, that's the one that's real special. But someone who's called the chief blah blah and blah blah officer doesn't mean much.
Under U.S. incorporation law, an officer is a title that is baked into the Articles of Incorporation and has a real specific meaning.
Right. So, but people are therefore misusing it in that case.
Yeah. Oh, undoubtedly.
It's not.
Imagine
common
that they're misusing a title.
Yeah, it's astonishing, Shel. It's not a common title here at all. I don't know anyone in the UK who's called a chief something officer or a British company.
Oh, we have chief information officers and chief marketing officers.
No, we don't have them
technology
here.
officers and
director. It's creeping in global firms, but in any case, the point of it isn't the job title. It's the role that's defined here.
Yeah.
So, and I think they're right, in my opinion, what they're talking about here. But when we get to it, we can talk about it.
And Chip refers to it as C-level bloat. I mean, if you have a chief technology officer, wouldn't that be the person who's ultimately responsible for the metaverse?
Oh, no, that's the point. That's the point. Okay, we'll get to this when we talk about this.
Yeah. Great. All right, and then we're going to stick with the metaverse based on the fact that there's this collision of the metaverse and blockchain and gaming that's going on that is just exploding. I mean, it's amazing. I've been reading so much about this. So I'm going to cover that.
Okay. I'm going to send you another link because there was a story I looked at yesterday. I thought, ooh, that's very interesting. I tweeted it. Let me find the tweet.
Yeah, Chip says it's like how small agencies used to have almost vice presidents. And I would say, and banks.
Yeah.
You walk into a bank headquarters and throw a rock, you're likely to hit a vice president.
That's the story I was referring to was in about Sotheby's and what they're doing. So the curated NFT platform called Sotheby's Metaverse. So, and they, of course, were one of the kind of big, high-profile entrants into this with the auctions.
Send me the link, and
I'm going to do that right now.
I'll add it to the show notes. But you can bring it up when we chat about this.
I'll just stick it in the chat. Okay. Hold on, so you can get that. There you go. Yeah. No, I will. Okay.
Chip says if you throw a rock in a bank these days, you'll probably get arrested.
Yeah. That I think that's probably all of it, isn't it?
All right, hang on. Let me just copy this in here, the link you just sent me, so I don't forget. Okay. Well, are you ready?
Yeah, I would say I am. I've got my, what do you call it? My
No, I am going to go into Audition here real quick and check my hardware settings.
Yeah, I've got.
Just to make sure. Yeti. Yay. Whew. Worried that it had changed that too. Okay. You ready to record?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, go. Oh, hi, everybody, and welcome to episode number 212 of For Immediate Release. This is the Hobson and Holtz report for October 2021. This is Shel Holtz in Concord, California.
And this is Neville Hobson in Thatcham in England.
And we are recording on October 16th, planning to drop this show on Monday the 18th. And we have some really interesting content to cover with you today. We're going to return to the metaverse later in the show with some really fascinating topics to share with you. Before we get there, though, a few housekeeping items, starting with a listener comment. Always excited to see a listener comment. This from our friend Tom Murphy, who thanks us for providing some much needed sanity last month on the Facebook response to their recent challenges. Tom says, as the saying goes, when you're in a hole, stop digging. They would have been better served by pausing for a moment and investing some time and resources to address the actual issues being raised rather than this mindless attempt to bluster their way through with PR. This is pure and simple a failure of leadership. And as Neville pointed out, they will continue to behave as they have until they have no other alternative. What surprises me, though it shouldn't, is that their response seems so out of touch with the time. But perhaps that just illustrates how far removed they are from the basics of what is right and what is wrong. That seems to be central to bad decision making.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to. I can't add anything. What Tom? It's interesting what you said, Tom. That really is. I mean, they seem to be adrift in many areas. It seems to me. Tone deaf is one that seems to me out of touch with, well, too many things probably. But I don't know what the answer, what the solution to Facebook is. I see a lot of people talk about now's the time to leave, but no one's doing that. So those conversations aren't really helpful. I think regulation is around the corner. That's what I think. And I hear some commentators saying this is actually what Zuckerberg is aiming for, so that they can take the blame for everything.
Right. Well, also provide some clear guidance, I suppose, although why they can't come up with some clear guidance internally. You know, there was that book, Trust Me, PR is Dead. Sure. And the author of this passed away, I believe, a short time ago. But he made the case that you don't need PR these days because companies are under a microscope and they are compelled to do the right thing. And I think Facebook is the case study as to why that's not the case.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's the nature of it. Regulation, it may be inevitable, but I think in terms of people passing laws, but implementing them and policing them, whole different ballgame. Yeah. Jurisdictions, there's no consensus, there's no single market. This is a global thing. I can't see it ever working truly. So Facebook will be. I think we'll see the next super scandal coming, and nothing will change. Sorry to be cynical, but I don't believe any change will happen.
Probably not. Sad to say. Yeah. In any case, thanks, Tom, for the comment. Thanks. And we are always interested in hearing what listeners think and having a conversation about them here on the show. So you'll get directions on how to submit comments if you stick with us through to the end of the show, which we hope you will. I also want to let you know there is an FIR interview coming. These are few and far between these days, based on our schedules. But this one came to me in a pitch in an email from somebody I had not solicited. I must get 5 or 6 of these every day. We have so and so who's available for an interview on thus and such. And most of those go right into the trash folder. But this one captured my interest. It's a couple of researchers who have identified a particular case in which using a narrative-based strategy in order to influence somebody doesn't work. And this is sort of a staple in the communications industry, isn't it? That you have to tell a story in order to drive the point home. And here's a case where a particular stakeholder audience hearing stories is unmoved, but they are moved by other things. And I found that to be fascinating. So I'm talking to these 2 researchers on Tuesday, and we'll get that posted. Also want to let everybody know that Circle of Fellows is going to be broadcast live this coming Thursday. I believe that's the 21st of October. It will be at noon Eastern time. And this is on communication ethics. Great panel. Tasha Torrey, Jane Mitchell out in your neck of the woods, Neville. Barbara Puffer, who served on the IABC Ethics Committee for several years, and Jennifer Waugh will be the panelists. I'm moderating for a discussion about communication ethics. So if you could join us, details are on the FIR Podcast Network website. And if you can't, of course, it will be available as both a video replay and Circle of Fellows podcast here on the FIR Podcast Network. So that's the news. And we'll get into our stories here in just a minute. But first, word from our sponsor, Polite Mail. I just had a meeting this past week with my boss and the consultant that we're bringing on board to conduct our internal communications audit, which we try to do every other year. And we spent a lot of time talking about how the data we collect could be used to demonstrate the value of the internal comms function. Now, seeing the latest Polite Mail blog post resonated with me since it's all about using empirical data to prove internal comms value. This post notes that one study found a connection between employee communications and employee engagement. Another study found a relation between internal comms and supportive employee behaviors like organizational citizenship behavior and employee advocacy. Yet another study found that communicating transparently with employees can reduce discrimination perceptions, enhance perceived organizational justice, and establish stronger employee organization relationships. Based on that research, the post suggests that 2 of the most valuable metrics to measure are employee engagement and employee retention. In my experience, internal communication can influence both of these. And importantly, they're both things that matter to senior leadership. So being able to connect the dots from your internal communication efforts to retention and engagement will certainly earn you some points. You know what else will earn you some points? Sending internal comms emails that get employees' attention and let you prove that they did the job with analytics that you can access directly from within Outlook. That's what Polite Mail does. So if you're looking to up your employee communications game, go read this latest post on the Polite Mail blog and take a look at the valuable service they provide. This is a service used by companies like eBay, Deloitte, PayPal, Expedia, even the National Basketball Association. You'll find it all at politemail.com, and we thank Polite Mail for their support of For Immediate Release.
We do indeed. So our first story is something that I personally find interesting, and I know many listeners do as well, but this is to do with synthetic voices, for want of a better way of putting it. These are the voices that aren't really people, or they might actually be people that a computer has made in their speech into phrases. So you use Alexa, you use Google Assistant, you're used to this. Most of those voices aren't real, quote unquote. So this story in the Wall Street Journal caught my interest, published about a week ago. The Rise of the Robo Voices was the title of it. And it really focuses on the entertainment industry as the example. I'm pretty sure, though, that much of this could be applied in any industry. They talk about new technology letting filmmakers create foreign language versions of films using samples of the original actors' voices to build out a narrative. No more awkward voiceovers, says the Wall Street Journal. That's how they start the piece. It starts really by a prediction. Highly sophisticated digital voice manufacturing is coming. And entertainment executives say it could bring a revolution in sound, as industry changing as computer graphics were for visuals. New companies are using artificial intelligence to create human-like voices from samples of a living actor's voice, models that can not only sound like specific performers, but can speak any language, cry, scream, laugh, even talk with their mouths full. At the same time, companies are refining the visual technology, so actors look like they are really speaking. The uses of synthetic voices extend well beyond localizing foreign films. AI models can provide useful voices for aging actors. The technology can resurrect audio from celebrities who've died or lost the ability to speak, and it can tweak dialogues in post-production without the need for actors. All the tinkering raises thorny ethical questions, says the journal. Where is the line between creating an engrossing screen experience and fabricating an effect that leaves audiences feeling duped? A valid question, although the journal does quote Oz Krakowski of Deep Dub, an AI voice company based in Tel Aviv, who doesn't think filmmakers necessarily need to inform audiences when using fake voices. I come to theatre to have a good time and enjoy, he says, and that's what we're supplying, an immersive experience. We may come back to that view, Shel, when we talk about this a bit.
We may.
Some other situations. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker in the original Star Wars. De-aging visuals were used on his face for the Mandalorian series, in which he played and reappeared in that show's late 2020 season finale. But the actor's voice aired without fanfare. Something people didn't realize is his voice isn't real, said Jon Favreau, who's the show's creator. That's one example. Another example, London AI firm Sonantic worked with actor Val Kilmer to recreate nearly 2 minutes of his voice. Kilmer, who lost his voice to throat cancer, sounded so real it moved his own son to tears. They couldn't tell the difference between that and his real voice. Filmmaker Morgan Neville recently acknowledged creating 45 seconds of an AI voice for late chef Anthony Bourdain in the documentary Roadrunner, stirring controversy over whether he had consent from the family and whether he should have informed the audience. So that's a thread that you're going to hear a lot more of, I feel sure, these ethically related points. Among the technology's biggest risks, says the journal, is the manipulated video or audio of deep fakes. More than one company attempted to replicate Morgan Freeman's voice in demos unavailable for public use. A representative for the actor said all of this was done without any permission. Journeyman actors, meanwhile, worry about getting replaced by computers. In the past 18 months, Los Angeles entertainment lawyer Daniel Black has negotiated 4 contracts that seek to use synthetic voices in place of performers when necessary. Mr. Black made sure his clients had the right to reject the voices if they didn't like the results. In the end, producers never needed to use the artificial voices, but the Hollywood clients took note. All 4 felt it was creepy, Black says. There was clearly a recognition, we can create your voice without you. So there's a landscape picture, Shel, that is now. This is happening now. And the iterative development and evolution of the technologies is happening at startling speed. And in fact, it is accelerating. One improvement creates another. That makes it easier then for the next improvement. And I think the focus ought to be a lot more on these ethical issues. I mean, we have lots of conversations we see online, people talking about deepfakes, great examples around everywhere that isn't really the actor's face. The porn industry has taken that to heart, I think. That's a big one with fakes. But it's part of the good side of it is how I tend to see the benefit here. And some of these things, if there is no intent to dupe or show people that this is not real, then I think it can have valuable benefits in the entertainment industry, as the Wall Street Journal's piece outlines. But I can see other areas in organizations, for instance, where this rapidly evolving technology could be of great value. So that's a landscape. And the ethical thing, like I said, I think the example points to something we need to be paying a lot more attention to. So what is the next step in that area? What's your take on it all, Shel?
Well, I think there's a big difference between the world of entertainment and some of the other uses to which this can be put, both nefarious and noble. It does remind me of the story that we reported on, couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years ago, from Adobe, product that they were working on, where you recorded somebody's voice, it created a transcript of that, and then you could go in and edit it, and the AI would produce audio of that person saying the new thing that you have done. You may have added a sentence or changed a word, and it very seamlessly sounded like that person. So this is an evolution of that kind of technology that was just mind-blowing and raising all kinds of ethical concerns when it was first unveiled at a demo. I think you can probably still find that video on YouTube. In entertainment, I'm inclined to agree with the Tel Aviv-based entrepreneur talking about the fact that he goes to the movies to be entertained. Am I going to feel duped if they dub in an AI voice at some point? No, I don't feel duped when I look at CGI and wait a minute, that's not real, what I just saw. As
That
long
dinosaur's not real. How can
Yeah.
that be? Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're not screwing over the actors somehow, I think that is a significant issue, and agents and contract lawyers are going to have to start taking all of this into consideration. But I'm more interested in how this is going to be used beyond entertainment. And we've talked about this before. I think the ability to take, for example, your CEO's voice, who may have just delivered remarks at an all-company update in the US and wants to get that message out to places where English is not the first language, to have that voice speaking in the native language to those employees could be very powerful. And obviously the CEO would endorse that. It's not something being done behind his back. On the other hand, we've already had the case where the voice of somebody was used in order to steal money from an organization. It sounded like an executive was issuing an order to an employee who complied with that order, and it turned out it wasn't that individual at all. It was an AI that manipulated that voice.
You're talking about the case in the UAE just a couple of days ago, right?
Oh, I'm thinking of one earlier. I have not heard about a case in the UAE a couple of days ago.
Huge, a lot of money, 30+ million. I mean, it was, yeah.
And it was based on audio?
It was a synthetic voice that sounded exactly like the CEO.
Well,
but
there you go then.
It was like the last step in things that had been put in place to give authenticity to the whole notion of the transaction that was then confirmed by the CEO's fake voice.
Yeah,
so
hearing
very
the voice will seal that
very
deal,
sophisticated. Yeah, very sophisticated. No, it's I agree. I mean, the I can see value in that. The CEO, for the example you gave, as long as it is, not put forward as something to what it isn't. It's like, for instance, saying, I bet you never knew the CEO could speak French. Well, guess what? Here he is speaking French. No, that's not true. So it needs to be handled in the right way, I would say. But the example is
and disclosure covers a lot of ground, right? I mean, you tell your employees, no, our CEO does not speak French, but we have the technology for him to speak to you in French.
Right, exactly right. I hope that's how this would be used. I would hope.
Yeah, and frankly, in the entertainment industry, you could do the same thing in the credits.
Yeah.
Right. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, movies. Well, yeah, I mean, we know they're dubbed, but yeah, the difference is, putting it simply, I think that the dubbing is now done in the actual voice that's synthetic of the original actor. So I don't believe you're right. You wouldn't. I don't believe feel you've been had with that. I don't believe so. Not in a movie.
Yeah. Certainly represents the continued rise of audio as an important channel, though, which we've been talking about for years now. There have been some other moves in audio recently. Facebook launched an audio hub here in the US. It's on the mobile app, but what it does is it aggregates all of the audio formats they have, which include podcasts and live audio rooms and short form audio. They're expanding their live audio rooms, their Clubhouse rival.
It doesn't. I mean, that's not synthetic though. That's just real audio, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're starting to roll out sound bites, which is a service like TikTok on Facebook, but just for short audio clips. There's a lot of movement in audio, and I think
yeah.
this synthesized voice is just a subset of this huge movement we're seeing in that space.
Right. So it's a good story out of Los Angeles. It reminded me a lot of Eric Schwartzman when he was filing stories. The kind of story Eric
From
would
the
file, I would
entertainment
say.
capital of the world.
You got it. This is exactly the kind of stuff now, some years later, with the way things are with tech, that Eric would relish, I think. So thanks for the point, Eric.
I saw a few stories this week that seemed to show a trend among, well, at least some organizations using social media, in particular, some newer social media properties, to build audiences through the use of influencers in a more organic way than what we've seen with the rise of influencers over the last couple of years. To be fair, I have not been the biggest advocate of influencer marketing as it has taken shape, but these cases aren't about the influencers you find in those influencer database services and pay big money to get them to showcase your product in an Instagram photo, even though they don't actually use your product. Now, for example, there are some cities who are turning to influencers to help them attract remote workers to come live there. This is not an original idea. I did some work for a healthcare organization based in Temple, Texas. This was back in 2009. And one of their challenges was getting doctors to come live in Temple, Texas. And what I recommended, I was working with them on social media primarily. I recommended that they have some of the doctors who are already working there produce testimonials about how great it is to live in Temple, Texas. No, it's not a thriving metropolis with this huge nightlife, but everybody trusts everybody. You can leave your door unlocked at night, and it's a great place to raise your kids in this community and all of that stuff. But this time around, we're talking about trying to get people to come work in your town, even though your company is somewhere else. It's all about the companies telling their employees that they can live wherever they want. You have a job in New York or San Francisco. Cost of living is outrageous, but you'd like to go live someplace where the cost of living is lower and the quality of life is much higher. So cities like Jacksonville, Florida, Greensboro, North Carolina, Fairfax County in Virginia are turning to influencers and social media marketing to reach the newly remote to try to attract them to come live here. Jacksonville, for example, they have an economic development agency that worked with two influencers, each of whom spent a week in different parts of Jacksonville at different times of the year. One of them, name of Natalie Barbu, is a 24-year-old creator and podcast host from Miami who stayed in Jacksonville Beach with her best friend. She went to coffee shops, she went to the beach, she took yoga classes, she went and listened to live music, all while working remotely. And she wrote detailed posts about her experience. So did Amanda Watkins, a blogger and creator from Atlanta, who stayed with her fiance in Jacksonville's downtown district. Between the two of them, they posted 68 posts across Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Watkins' blog, and cumulatively, they generated 4.9 million impressions. In Fairfax County, 11 influencers that they worked with created 78 posts. And one reason they generate so much interest is because they're kind of what if in nature, right? What if I could move to a place like this and still work for my Chicago-based employer? I think it's an interesting approach. Another one that caught my attention was from Clubhouse.
Before we move on
ahead.
to Clubhouse, yeah, just thinking about what you said about that. How would that fit, do you think, with some of the talk you hear that I suspect is going to be put in place? That is to do with here you are, got a really well-paid job with this big company, and you're working remotely, and you move to a place where the cost of living is a lot lower, and your employer says you're going to get a pay cut because
that's happening.
Your costs are less. So how would that fit with the messaging that is being pitched to come and live in this gorgeous place? It's lovely, it's safe, leave your doors unlocked, raise your kids, etc., etc., and you find that the net income you've got is reducing Whereas if you stayed where you were, you could plan it quite well, and there's the balancing act basically. So,
Right.
is
So,
that going to feature big? Do you think in the pitching and the responses
I
of the employer?
I don't think it's going to figure big in the pitching of these organizations. I do think the companies that employ these folks are going to have to uh, be proactive in communicating this as part of their remote work policy. Salaries are determined based on the region you live in. Obviously, we pay more in San Francisco than somebody's going to pay in Iowa because it costs less to live in Iowa.
So, someone
So
moves from San Francisco to Iowa, they get a pay cut.
they're going to get a pay cut, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is pretty routine. But employees who say, I'm remote, I can work anywhere and move, may be surprised
Yeah.
by the pay cut. And they shouldn't be. I think as part of your communication about going remote, you need to say, if you move to someplace where the salary bands are lower, your salary is going to be affected. The other thing it could affect is your benefits.
Yeah.
Right here in the U.S., we provide benefits, and my company is a California-based company, so we have California-based medical networks.
Right.
If you move out of network, we're not going to contract with a whole network just because one employee has decided to go live in Jacksonville, Florida. Right, so suddenly they're on their own.
So, they give you an allowance to do your own funding, I would imagine.
Well, I think every company is going to have to figure out how they're going to deal with that.
Right. But it reminds me of the thing that was a big deal in the 15 years ago when all this was kicking off was some of the glamorous stories you'd hear about such and such a person who was kind of jetting around the world and working at these great exotic locations. There's a laptop sitting on the beach and all this stuff. It's wonderful. Some of it was real. I don't believe much of it else, frankly. But I read a story probably a year ago now that talked about this very topic on remote working. If you think you can just decide, oh, let me take off, I'm going to go and live in,
Aruba,
or in the Mediterranean and a Greek island, or I'm going to do a nice place in the Caribbean, or you can't, because it talked precisely on that exact topic: benefits, employee benefits, obligations, and tax was the big one.
Tax is a
tax
big one.
liability from the employer as well as the employee. If you're an employee of a foreign company, as seen by the place you're going to go to, and you want to go there and live, there may be implications for your employer doing that. So this is. I don't believe this is new, but it's suddenly becoming part of the discussion on this topic.
Yeah, where you're talking about companies that are saying 60,000 employees can now work remotely.
Yeah.
There needs to be some proactive communication and maybe even a policy guide on what it means if you move out of our region, if you move out of our market area.
I probably not enough of that happening.
Oh, I haven't heard of anybody.
No, I haven't either. But the idea of traveling to exotic foreign parts now is, I think, diminished significantly because of the pandemic.
Yeah. So you're going to stay domestic, but
right. Or if you could even get into a country, because they won't let you in. So
right.
Yeah, okay.
But there's plenty of places in a place as big as the U.S. to move where you'd still encounter some of those problems, even state tax issues.
Yeah, particularly tax.
Okay. Well, moving on to our next organic social media marketing example. This one is from Clubhouse. I've pretty much shrugged off Clubhouse these days, but I read about this attorney. Her name, which I'm going to butcher, is Nitra Ahurayan. I'm sure that's wrong. But she hosts a room every Thursday night with a colleague, and the room is called Entertainment Law Exposed. So she wrote a column in the Wrap and said that one night this turned into an epic viral event that attracted 35,000 guests and ran for 17 hours. And this was in large part because 3 unexpected guests showed up. And it wouldn't have happened, she said, if she and her partner hadn't created a valuable forum on a regular schedule. So I think that's the first lesson out of Clubhouse is if you're going to do it right. And just say, we're going to be here every Tuesday night at 6 or whatever. The guests who dropped by, one of them was Tiffany Haddish, the actress and comedian. And Nitra wrote, at first, I thought she'd pop in for a minute and leave, but after 10 to 20 minutes, she was still in the audience listening intently. And like anyone else interested in speaking on stage, she raised her hand. Then one of the Real Housewives joined the conversation, and so did somebody called Patty Stanger, the millionaire matchmaker. I don't know who either of these people are, but I don't have to. Other people do. The audience did. And the point that this lawyer made is that all three came by because they were looking for information, not attention, right? What we came to realize, she wrote, is that if you just provide a platform where everyone is on the same playing field, people will tune in. So another way that you can start to wield some influence through this newer channel, this social audio channel of Clubhouse. Meanwhile, brands are scouring TikTok to find their next content creators. I remember when that was happening on Vine, but what's happening here is, first of all, this isn't about finding an influencer to necessarily hawk your product. As one creative director put it, it's no longer about trying to get that one creator with a giant following to mention your brand once. These creator classes, and that's a phrase that we're going to be hearing a lot, I think, creator classes. These creator classes allow brands to integrate the creator into their overall marketing strategy. They want these creators to be an extension of their marketing teams. Brands are finding influencers who genuinely and organically love the brand. Major League Baseball, for example, has a creator class where each of the creators demonstrates a different aspect of their love of the game. This was in an Ad Age article. One plays baseball as an esport. Gatorade chose 9 athlete influencers to make content for its TikTok. One's a former walk-on for the Florida Gators, the college football team that led to the naming of Gatorade. One is known for basketball trick shots, and one is a professional soccer freestyler. Chipotle is another brand introducing a creator class. The point of all of these is that going organic with your approach to social media marketing can really pay off. I like all three stories for that reason. It's almost like going back to the early days of social media marketing when it was more about authenticity than anything else.
Yeah, that end sentence sums it up really for me, I think. But I would say the examples you gave, particularly well, not particularly, but the Clubhouse and this one TikTok probably, but more. If you want, if your goal is engagement, I think, if your goal isn't that, where it's simply sharing content or encouraging people to click on something or whatever it might be, then the approach is different and the rationale is different. But the authenticity is the key thing to all of this. In a time when everything isn't authentic, it's all marketing. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just observing, so I'm not criticizing it. I prefer authentic to marketing, I have to say, honestly.
Yeah, which is what drives me crazy about these influencers who get big money to hold up a product that they don't actually use.
No, absolutely. But that was it ever thus, Shel, I think. I mean, it's here we've got a new media to do these things now. But this is interesting development, though. I mean, the Clubhouse one, it's mind-boggling. Was it 17 hours and 30,000 people joining in? My goodness me. So is that because of the celebs who joined, or is that so? What's your take on the reason why?
Why it went that way?
Yeah.
In the first place, I think it was partly the celebs, but partly seeing that, this person has 300,000 followers and they're in our market demographic, so let's pay them to pitch our product. It's really just the modern equivalent to the celebrity spokesperson who was on TV talking about your product and doesn't actually. I mean, Tom Selleck doesn't buy this retiree insurance, but he's up there on TV selling it, right? So I like the micro influencers who really are experts in the area and aren't going to talk about something that they don't actually endorse. And that's kind of where we're headed here. These are people who are, on the TikTok example, these are people who are already producing content about, baseball. Right. So for the Major League Baseball organization to basically co-opt them and say, create it for us, they're not going to be doing anything different. They're just going to have a bigger audience. That's what Vine did, right?
Yeah, agree.
It created a bunch of these people who produced these amazing Vine videos. Remember the Vine 6-second videos?
Yeah.
That brands took advantage of. I remember Lowe's, for example, had a bunch of Vine creators doing, handy ways to use simple products to clean your house. And they were doing these things anyway. So that's what lent that air of authenticity to it. And I like seeing a return to that.
Yeah, agree. I think these are really good examples you've highlighted. So authenticity, that's the name of the game. So the other name of the game we'll come to in a different segue. I'm segueing now to a different story. We're making a link there with about the name of the game. Remote working jobs. And this is a survey, reporting on a survey in ZDNet just the other day. Headline was the grabber that showed up in my interest feed. Disaster looms as managers refuse to listen, is what they're saying about remote working and policies. So it's really reporting on a survey from the Future Forum, so called the Future Forum Pulse Survey, that asked 10,500 knowledge workers, that DNet describes them as, in the US, UK, Australia, France, Germany, Japan in August and July and August this year. The results found that many company executives continue to view the office as the nerve center of work, despite a growing preference for flexible working policies by employees. So there's your disconnect between what senior people in an organization would like to do, what employees would like to do, with simple evidence that employees are not being consulted at all in these plans. So executives are drawing up post-pandemic work policies without employees' input, says the survey, who are willing to quit if their employers don't deliver. Now, that's not necessarily a groundswell, but that's an opinion voiced by many in the survey. And of course, the proof of it will be, would they do that if it came to it? So it's quite a sizable number of people across a significant number of countries. The survey also found that workers were largely being left out of the planning of post-pandemic working policies, suggesting that these plans are being designed around the working preferences of senior leadership. The survey results echo a sentiment that's been voiced repeatedly over the past 18 months or so. Employees have embraced remote working and see it as a pillar of their future working preferences. Yet executives are more likely than lower-level workers to be in favor of a working week based heavily around an office. And that actually reminds me of similar findings in that really big survey done by Microsoft about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe a bit longer, earlier this year, came up with similar views from those results. Some numbers here. The Pulse survey shows 44% of executives said they wanted to work from the office every day, compared to just 17% of employees. 75% of executives said they wanted to work from the office 3 to 5 days a week versus 34% of employees. To me, there's a path being traveled there. They're heading towards a consensus if they can find the right numbers, but please both. And I think that's going to be the trick. The view of the office looks different from the top, said Brian Elliott, who's the executive leader of the Future Forum, which is backed by Slack. While executives are banging down the door to get back to their corner offices, non-executive employees are demanding flexibility in where and when they work. The survey found that over the past 12 months, the share of Black respondents agreeing with the statement, "I value the relationship I have with my co-workers," rose from 48% to 76%. While the share of respondents that agreed with the statement, "I am treated fairly at work," rose from 47% to 73%. Meanwhile, 87% of Asian respondents and 81% of Black respondents cited a preference for flexible or hybrid work, compared to 75% of white respondents. So that sort of slicing and dicing by race is an inevitability in the diversity focus we have in the workplace these days. You're quite right, too, to look at that as part of the overall picture that you need to consider. So that's reporting it. My simple view, Shel, frankly, on this is astounding to me that any company would go through any process to figure out what post-pandemic work policies are without consulting the employees. I truly find it jaw-dropping to know that senior executive companies are basically saying, yep, we don't need to talk to employees, here's the policy. That's utter insanity, it seems to me. And therefore, I have no sympathy if your key people quit and go and work someplace else. So what they need to do, this is the 101 here, folks. Take a listen to this. Build compromises that give everyone something, and communication is paramount. I rest my case.
A case well rested. And what amazes me, like you, is not just that the companies that are establishing these policies aren't consulting employees, but they're companies that in many cases have high levels of employee engagement and generally do give employees a voice. This just seems to have fit into some category in the minds of the company leadership that doesn't require that. This is one of those things that is a leadership decision, plain and
Yeah.
simple. And it shouldn't be. You're absolutely right. And I think not giving employees a voice in something like this during this particular era where employees definitely seem to be in the driver's seat is a big mistake. I was just seeing a report on this last night, the number of companies that are going on strike, where employees are going on strike. It's one of the biggest seasons for strikes in decades, and big. I mean, you're talking 60,000 employees at Deere, for example,
Yeah.
and maybe 20,000 Deere and 60,000 in the entertainment industry that are going to be going out on Monday, and Kaiser Permanente nurses. Employees feel like they have a say now because of the number of jobs that are open and how desperate companies are, and they have this power. And to ignore that, I think, is to put your company in peril. I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah, I agree. It's similar here, but for different reasons, not because of the pandemic. You're hearing talk of strikes, a lot to do with the chaos that's happening here in the UK over in the media everywhere around the world, supply chain difficulties, not enough truck drivers. You've got nurses going on strike because they're being ignored with their requests for reasonable pay, highlighting issues that politicians have ignored or simply not done anything about for decades.
Right, and you have
here in the UK. Well, here in the UK, you've then got the Brexit angle in all of this as well.
Right.
So, and now we're going to have this too. This will pile into it. Hence, my view that we're heading into very dark times. I think, generally in society.
Yep.
With all this stuff piling in, and at a time when things are so fragile and precarious. The paradox to me, Shel, here in the UK, I have a feeling it might be the same in the States. Job vacancies across the board at an overall high for decades.
Massive.
And yet, right. So
Records.
job vacancies. So what is it? People don't want to take the kind of work, or what's the reason? It's tricky.
Well, that's a lot of it. People want to take a job that gives them a living wage, and a lot of these jobs don't have it, and people are fed up, and they're not going to take them. Companies are going to have to start offering a living wage with decent benefits. You also have people who say, because of the pandemic and some of the issues that have arisen, childcare is a bigger issue. I can't count on my kid being in school set hours every day. Also, childcare, can cost more than your mortgage. So a lot of women are just exiting the workforce to stay home and care for their kids. And that takes a lot of people out of that pool that would otherwise be available to fill some of these jobs. So that's a big deal. The other role the pandemic is playing here is that you have workers. This is certainly the case in the entertainment industry, where all of the behind the scenes people are set to go on strike on Monday. Who see that the companies have done very, very well during the pandemic, and none of that has been shared with them. And they're kind of fed up with that. And I can't say I blame them. That gets back to that wealth gap where all of the wealth is shifting over to that 1%, and everybody else is left begging for scraps. And when you have employees in this position of power, they're able to say, we're not going to put up with this, and they can either just walk away or strike or become employee activists or whatever it may be.
Yeah, similar thing here in the UK as well, in that particular example you gave. Although here you've got, I think, agendas, ideologically driven in many cases, what I call the old politics. I mean, I can still remember the 1970s when strikes were all the time, and we even had power station workers going on strikes. There was no electricity in the country for days on end. I'm not saying we're getting back to that, but some of the talk is very much laden with some of the political crap from that era. I think they need to drop all that shit, basically. Just talk properly and in tune with contemporary desires, because there's not a lot of disagreement that the living wage and reasonable work and pay and all those benefits, you name it, that is then damaged. The people putting that views forward by the examples such as you've mentioned, where this person in that company suddenly gets a pay rise, he's earning six figures already, and that goes up even more, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not good.
Well, some companies are getting this, right? Amazon
Yeah,
announced
agree.
just a few days ago that a lot of its tech and corporate workers can keep working remotely indefinitely. They just need to be able to commute to the office when they're needed there, which precludes you're going to live in some resort area. But they're going to leave it to the discretion of their directors. And a director at Amazon is an executive who oversees a handful of teams. So it's not like a board director. The policy applies to 60,000 or so Amazon workers in the Puget Sound region. And incidentally, that's stirring up some worries among business owners in the area who count on Amazon employees in the office patronizing their businesses. This is what happened in New York, right, where the bodega owners were really suffering.
Same in London and big urban cities here. When you're absolutely right. So it's not uniformly positive. The ideas are great, but there are consequences for other sectors of the economy.
But PwC, the accounting firm, said all of its 40,000 U.S. employees can choose to work remote permanently. And just this morning, I saw an article on LinkedIn. This was about a Business Insider piece about how companies like Herman Miller that make offices, right, are working to design the office of the future as a place that will compete with where remote workers want to be. In other words, this is such an awesome office. I want to go in there. They're focusing on community socialization, balanced with space for focused productivity. So we'll see if they can lure people back to the office with awesome offices.
That's what's needed now is a completely different type of thinking to engage with employees. Persuade them, not like we want you all back in the office because why we're offering X, Y, and Z. This is part of the new landscape now. So this is a topic we've just touched on that I can see we're going to be talking a lot more about. I'm actually interested to know anyone listening willing to share an opinion on what's happening in your organization. Are you seeing some of these things, or are you aware of these things where you are? I think it'd be really good to know some of that stuff. So,
you know what?
If you want to share, let us know.
Let's put together a little bullet list of the issues we're interested in hearing about. And I can post it to our Facebook group and a few other places where our listeners convene.
Let's do that.
Okay, Dan at 46 minutes. Okay. Well, thanks, Dan. Yeah, I've read a lot over the years about how Facebook is the internet in various parts of the world, especially third world regions. In fact, I've done some competition judging for Reagan and IEBC and the like, where that fact led an organization to use Facebook to engage with those audiences, knowing that that's how those people access online information. And Slack clips, man, there we go, Neville, more audio. The rise of audio is just staggering. It's like the fact that everybody was thinking that virtual and augmented reality was going to be the next huge thing. It's not, it's audio.
Well, it's certainly one of the easiest things to get into compared to augmented reality and all this other kind of metaverse-y type stuff that I keep hearing a lot about.
Not that I don't love my virtual reality, but
no, I know. But yeah, with social audio, as it's been dubbed, I use that phrase a lot to just kind of the umbrella term to describe all of this. It is interesting what's now possible, what people can do, and how it ebbs and flows. I mean, some of these things vanish and some will stick. So,
but I think the audio category is just going to continue to rise, even as some players fall off and other new ones start up.
It'll evolve. Yeah.
Well, it's been a while since we've invoked Jakob Nielsen's name here on FIR. Nielsen, many of you probably know, was the usability guru at Sun Microsystems, who then went on to form the Nielsen-Norman Group, which does research on user experience. I saw an article. I get their email newsletter, which I usually just sort of scan to see if there's anything relevant to the work that I'm doing. But there was an article on their blog by Anna Cayley that grabbed my attention. It does focus on something I've been tearing my hair out over on my job. The headline of the article is 9 Ways to Encourage Employee Sharing and Engagement on an Intranet. I have to admit, I am basically over intranets. They are not dead, as some would have it. But they basically are the permanent repository of content, right? The single source of truth. But in terms of getting this content to your employees, I don't know how many are in the habit of going and sitting at a computer and pulling up a page to get information anymore. I know some are. I was talking to an internal communications research expert just this past week who said one of the audits that she did for a client showed that all this mobile stuff you're doing, we'd rather have it on an intranet. I'm sure that may be true in some organizations, but yeah, I'm more enthusiastic about a consumer grade mobile solution. But I don't have the budget for that. What I have is an intranet. So I was attracted to this piece, which has some good advice from one of the winners of the Nielsen Norman 2021 Intranet Design Annual Award, a company called Keysight Technologies. Their Intranet Pulse used all 9 of these approaches. First is offering the ability to comment on news articles and videos. Check. We have that, and sometimes people do, but reading this led me to think that we need to find a better way to spotlight that and maybe even report on some of the things that people have said when they leave a comment. Next is employee video sharing. That is certainly enabled, but it doesn't happen much, and it's a little complicated. We use Microsoft Streams, which is not the most intuitive place to share video. So again, something for us to consider making simpler and promoting more heavily. They talk about a monthly photo contest with a global panel of employees judging submissions, picking a winner, and 9 honorable mentions every month. And of course, employees can comment on the photos that they see that have been submitted. The internet lets employees share ideas for improving the organization, and other employees can weigh in on these. I really like this. This section of the internet actually brings teams together to work on common goals and solutions to existing problems. I like that a lot. They do a sort of an Ask Me Anything like event with executives. Yeah, that would attract people. They have a feedback bar on the bottom of every page where employees can let the internal comms team know that they had trouble finding something or there was out of date information on a page. They do quick polls on all kinds of things. The one that they had a screenshot of in this post is from last year. It asked if you will travel via airplane this summer. And the answers that you could choose from were yes, the deals are great. Yes, because I can't drive. I'm waiting until it's proven safe, and physical distancing for me until there's a vaccine. That's how I knew it was from last year, because we now have the vaccine. There's a place where employees can submit news stories, and you can email the authors of the stories to ask questions or report issues. And they're all good ideas, and I'm taking a few of them back to my team to work on and implement.
No, they really are good ideas, all of them. And I think this to me comes like pages lifted out of the Intranet 101 handbook, right? Because none of these things are, oh my God, I never heard of such an idea before.
Yeah, they're not leveraging a brand new technology or anything.
But they're reinforcing these still have validity, and many people probably aren't doing some of this stuff.
Yeah, we were talking about polls just a week or so ago. I remember when I was doing work as an independent consultant for the Southern Company, and this was some time ago, maybe 10 years ago. And every day they had a poll on the homepage of the intranet. 4 days of the week, they were frivolous. You know, which team are you rooting for to win the Super Bowl type of thing. And then the 5th one was always business related. And people were so in the habit of responding to the fun polls because you can immediately see how people have been voting after you have voted, right?
Yeah.
That you just naturally and by habit answered the business question. So they, once a week, they got really good data. And the rest of the week, their employees had a good time. It's great.
Good trade-off. Cool. So, question. Is it time to hire a chief metaverse officer?
Do you want an answer now, or should I wait?
You should wait. You should wait till we have our discussion. This is a question asked in Vogue Business. That's the business side of Vogue magazine, the fashion industry, one of the Bibles, if you will. It's quite an interesting piece. Clearly, the title of the article, which I just read out, was what attracted me to the listing when it appeared in the feed. They introduce it. This is written by Megan McDowell, and I think she's quite good. Right, she introduced it by saying this: brands are entering the metaverse through virtual stores, augmented reality, gaming, and digital fashion shows. How a brand appears in the metaverse could help them make a successful splash or risk alienating millions of loyal users, says Vogue Business. Now a new need is emerging, someone who can oversee and integrate these projects. One thing to mention, the audience for this article are people in that industry. So to you and I, Shel, much of this you're kind of going to go, okay, yeah, we heard all this before. They probably haven't. And I like the way that you're seeing stuff like this appear in journals like Vogue magazine. So the first quote comes from Karen Harvey, CEO and founder of fashion advisor and executive placement firm, the Karen Harvey Companies, who's currently in the midst of placing a number of people in these types of metaverse-related roles, with 2-year stints to begin, with the potential to extend. A role akin to Chief Metaverse Officer could be next, she says. Part marketing, part business strategy, the role of the Chief Metaverse Officer would need to understand both creative and technical aspects, says Kathy Hackle, Chief Metaverse Officer and CEO of the Futures Intelligence Group, a consultancy with a number of fashion clients. Some brands have started to assemble teams dedicated to metaverse collaborations, says Rudy Lee, Chief Strategy Officer at Zepeto, the social networking and avatar simulation app that has recently partnered with Gucci, Ralph Lauren, Dior Beauty, and NARS Cosmetics. The Chief Metaverse Officer would liaise between necessary people for a range of projects. These could include virtual goods, avatars, NFTs, gaming, extended reality, and more, Hackle says. Additionally, they would need knowledge of cryptocurrencies, blockchain, cloud computing, gaming engines, and digital design. They will need to be translators between the technical side of the metaverse and the business and creative sides, she says. Samuel Jordan, a digital fashion pioneer and Roblox creator who has partnered with brands such as Stella McCartney to create digital assets, says, besides acting as a point person, the metaverse officer would ideally be someone who has been in the space and understands the language. I've seen a lot of people talking about the metaverse, but I haven't seen people creating something in those spaces, he says. According to a number of tech platforms, luxury brands and creatives that Vogue Business spoke to, there is currently no formal functional role that oversees metaverse projects for brands yet. Kathy Hackle predicts that brands will begin to consider this type of role in 2023. So, you got a lot to talk about the metaverse in this upcoming segment here, Shel. What's your take on that?
Well, I have two distinct opinions here. The first is around the word officer. And we're going officer crazy. This may be a U.S. thing, but
I think it is, Shel. Yeah.
Most companies have a few. There's a president, a CEO, or a president or a CEO, a treasurer or chief financial officer, a recording secretary on the board, a chief operating officer. And these days we see chief HR officers, chief information officers, CIOs we've been talking about for a long time, chief technology officers. Now we have chief marketing officers and chief communications officers. But an officer position in a corporation is something that's baked into the articles of incorporation and are often, subject to incorporation laws. And if you look it up, the main responsibility for an officer is managing the day-to-day business for the company. So does the metaverse rate someone to be responsible for the metaverse-related hiring and firing, financial management, task delegation, and so on? Yeah, maybe, depending on the nature of your business and how metaverse-related, metaverse-dependent you think you're going to be. But does it need to be an officer position as opposed to a high-level person who's just put in charge of that? Officers are responsible for ensuring the business keeps operating by handling routine business functions. And that just doesn't sound like something that is focused entirely on the metaverse. So someone needs to decide if the metaverse actually rates that level of responsibility on a case-by-case basis. Do we need to be taking it seriously and have somebody in charge? Yeah, if your business is going to be heavily engaged in it.
I think, just to interject a comment there, I don't disagree with you at all about the purpose of an officer in an organization. What I see happening as an observer outside the US, and I think you're right, this is primarily a US thing. It's designed to suggest and indeed put forward quite strongly a seniority.
Right.
And a responsibility position, but not for executive matters. So the phrase see whatever O has been seriously diluted. Does it would it confuse people? I don't believe most people would be. They wouldn't
I don't
think
know.
necessarily.
In a publicly traded company, maybe.
Well, you're talking legal stuff here. I get that. I'm just thinking about how someone meets someone. Hey, I'm the chief metaverse officer of XYZ company. They're not going to think, oh, that
Yeah,
person's obviously running the business. They're not going to think that.
yeah.
They're
Well,
going to
you
think that
mentioned that
person's
there's one.
responsible for metaverse
Yeah,
stuff, not
you
necessarily
mentioned
running the business, right?
you mentioned one in the article who's the chief metaverse officer and the CEO. Now that
Well,
makes
that's
sense.
two, yeah, absolutely. But I think that's just because that's who they talk to. It's not suggesting anything. So I don't think this is. Well, this to me seems like a kind of a kerfuffle in a teacup. Let's
It
say,
probably is, but
yeah,
we were talking with Chip about this earlier.
yeah.
And he said that we've gone C-suite
Oh,
crazy, C-level bloat going on, and I couldn't
totally.
agree more.
I'm not sure C-suite though. It's the officer thing because everyone's suddenly an officer now, denoting seniority.
Right.
So why can't we go back to just good old vice presidents, for God's sake?
Yeah.
I mean,
In charge.
yeah, a vice president in charge of the metaverse. That sounds a pretty cool title to
There
me.
you go.
But nevertheless, the key question in this whole thing is it time to have someone who performs this kind of liaison role? Although I don't think that's the right way to describe it. It doesn't sound very substantive. I think though it's worth considering that point. And okay, Vogue Business treats this as a pretty high level, light article. It doesn't go into any depth at all, but
Right.
it's raised this subject. That's the thing. Is it time for someone who can knit together? And some of the examples, some of the people quoted have given, you need to know about cryptocurrencies, about the blockchain. So you've got to understand all this stuff. And isn't that actually something that we've often talked about before, where a key role of a communicator is to in a sense act as a translator for the business to those who need to know what the business is and don't understand it, or who should do but don't understand it. But
Exactly,
that
which is
person is the person who is the point person. Doesn't do the work necessarily, but will do some of it, sure. But can build a team that has the right skills and so forth. That's how I see that role. So you're going to call the person the chief metaverse officer.
Right.
You have confusion though when the acronym CMO, because hey, that's taken already
Chief
by the
marketing
marketing
officer.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah, and it also speaks to why we on this show talk about things like blockchain and NFTs, and when we're a
yeah,
communications focused show, is because
yeah.
communicators need to understand this stuff.
Right, right. We had that with the hype cycles back in the day, when you need to pay attention to these things that are trending or not, as the case might be, because they will come knocking on your door. And if you're unprepared, someone else is going to be taking care of it. And hey, you better get your CV brushed up in that case. So,
Yeah, exactly right. So let's keep talking about the metaverse,
yeah,
shall we?
yeah, yeah.
One reason it's going to be huge is because its framework involves a variety of other digital trends that are also exploding at the same time. All these things are colliding, which means any one of these things that might have faded away on their own, they're being fused into something bigger. Gaming is a huge part of this. Not that gaming would ever fade away, but blockchain gaming, I don't know how long blockchain gaming might have survived without the introduction of NFTs and the metaverse. Let's look at one example called Eartha, ERTHA.
Mm-hmm.
It's described like this. Ready? Buy, sell, and rent land to earn. Eartha is a new dynamic NFT metaverse running on Binance Smart Chain, hoping to shape up the play-to-earn gaming landscape. The game aims to encompass an accurate life simulation on a massive scale where players will be able to micromanage their own companies and countries. The story of Eartha is set against the backdrop of a post-apocalyptic world where the global warming couldn't be stopped. Floods cover half the earth, and sinking cities and significant landmarks vanishing is normal. Meanwhile, the other side of the world is fighting fires that burn everything in their path, from homes to people. You can choose to be a businessman, scholar, or fighter. Eartha is divided into 353 NFT hexagons that generate rewards for landowners for every transaction that occurs within that plot. The NFT land sale, according to the article, has already started, with plots going for $200 to $500 per hex, with a minimum buy of $1,000. That's one example. Fast Company reports on Alethea AI. This is a new company that's being backed by Mark Cuban. that wraps avatars in artificial intelligence that animates them, giving them conversational skills and knowledge. But at their heart, what they are is conversational NFTs or intelligent NFTs. That's INFT. This gives NFTs something like sentience to allow them to become part of the gaming metaverse. Now, the author of this piece say that avatars he saw included faithful recreations of well-known NFTs like Bored Apes and CryptoPunks. There are historical figures like Edgar Allan Poe and Catherine the Great, and media figures like Snow White. Bitcoinist listed 7 companies at the forefront of the metaverse gaming movement, like Planet Sandbox, which recently launched a 3D game that lets players earn digital currency from conquering other players and customizing worlds for use within the metaverse. Others have names like Pocket Arena, Good Games Guild, the Killbox, and Rokosoft. Now, according to Business Insider, NFT trading volume exploded by 704% in the third quarter. That's 704% more NFT purchases than in the previous quarter, attributable mainly to this blockchain game phenomenon catching fire. $10.7 billion in trading volume in the last quarter, over $2 billion some odd the quarter before, because gamers want to earn money from blockchain-based NFTs, one in-game in these metaverse environments. One characteristic of traditional video games is music. So all this metaverse blockchain NFT gaming is going to need music too, right? So a company called Stage 11 has raised nearly $6 million in seed funding to reimagine music for the metaverse, combining music, games, mixed reality, and NFTs. They plan to build a new creative canvas for artists, allowing them to invite fans to live, play, and create inside their performances and musical worlds. This, according to an article in VentureBeat. Quoting from the article, these worlds combine immersive gameplay sequences, lifelike performances, cinematic narratives, and exclusive digital collectibles. This forms the core of a music metaverse.
Wow.
As all of this takes shape, more and more brands are starting to pay attention. Viacom CBS, for example, is partnering with an NFT startup to build a platform where fans can buy, collect, and resell digital assets from Star Trek, South Park, SpongeBob SquarePants. This Business Insider article, where I learned about this, didn't mention the metaverse, but it's not hard to see how you could take your Star Trek avatar purchased from Viacom CBS into a gaming metaverse, or turn it into a hip-hop singer over in Stage 11's metaverse. Only tangentially related to all of this is the article I saw about a company called Hypnos Virtual, which wants to transform the virtual reality experience by introducing what it calls biomedia, bringing bioaromatics into the mix. It has a product called Scentscape. One version of this is the size of a mini fridge, and it would be used in a movie theater. So something is on the screen that has an odor related to it, you'll smell it. It has a scent track, continually changing like a musical score, drawing from a library of aroma chemicals to make things smell like what's on the screen. Not exactly original idea, Neville. I think we reported on an effort like this all the way back in 2006 or 2007 that used a SCSI card to connect to your computer, more like a printer with scent cartridges, and it didn't go anywhere. But honestly, I can envision scent tokens, scent NFTs that you could use in the metaverse. How weird and amazing would it be when you're in a metaverse playing a blockchain game and you can tell someone you know is approaching you because you can smell them? Like I say, this space is absolutely exploding, and just like Viacom CBS, companies are going to find all kinds of ways to tap into it. Hello?
Okay.
I finished.
Okay. Did you see my text message?
I did.
Good. So you're going to edit all this out, I suppose, in the audio, this gap.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Cool. So I'm always wondering, actually, listening to when you were talking through all of that, whether we should have had the question, is it time to hire a chief metaverse officer after all of this discussion? But we didn't. We had it before, so that's okay. But it suddenly occurred to me, actually, it would be a natural to say, so do we need a chief metaverse officer?
If you're going to be tapping into this,
right. Some of what you
as a
described requires someone to know across the board what all this means to an organization. And some of it, not necessarily, because it's very specific. But generally speaking, this adds weight, I think, to this Vogue business piece on, yes, you do need someone who is versed in this, who gets it, who understands it, and is able to convincingly explain to those who will make the decisions on business direction whether we should be paying attention to this or not. So I can see that's a big opportunity for someone with some of these skills looking for something that can make a real difference at this stage to an organization. But some of those examples are truly extraordinary, aren't they?
Yeah. And I think in the entertainment world, in the fashion world, it's not going to be that hard to sell the idea that somebody needs to be focused on this.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of other industries, it's going to be what we've seen in the past. It's going to be the same old wait and see, or not take it seriously until it's the train is about to barrel through your front door.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
lots to pay attention to here.
I suspect we'll be talking about the metaverse and NFTs a lot
during the course of the year. Definitely agree.
Because, I mean, you look at NFTs, and when we first saw them, they were tokens on the blockchain that pointed to a painting, for example, a digital painting that could vanish the next day. Now it's your avatar in the metaverse. It's the land you own in the metaverse that allows you to play the game and generate actual revenue. So
I think one of the interesting things I found is that most of the action that is happening, and indeed the kind of benefits we see, the real world value that's being generated in many areas, in gaming and in art, particularly art, because some of the numbers are quite mind-boggling. In the triple digits of millions of dollars.
I think the universe of gamers is bigger than the universe of art.
No doubt. But the art world is the one that really got traction going. Now the rest of it begin to follow. I mean, the latest news in the art world, Sotheby's launching a curated NFT platform they call Sotheby's Metaverse. With all the right keywords in their shelf for SEO, no question. It's saying that there's some great acronyms here, I tell you. The platform will include curated NFTs from the Sotheby's team and allow individuals to purchase NFTs using ETH, BTC, USDC, or fiat currencies. Now, to me, fiat currency is a pretty common phrase in the financial service industry, but you need someone in your team to know what the hell that all means.
Right. And the other thing this leads me to think is, you in the early days of NFTs, right, 3 months ago, you bought it, and so what? You had the token in the blockchain that pointed to the asset, and you show people, look, that's the asset that I have the token to. Now it could hang in the place that you build in the metaverse, the actual piece of art, because you have the token to put it there. So,
well, it intrigues. I mean, Sotheby's platform is reading the release from Sotheby's. I love it. It's powered by Mojito. Lovely name, isn't it? It's a startup that builds a startup that builds NFT platforms and ensures compliance. Now that's interesting. It doesn't say anything more than that right now. But the first sales are taking place on Sotheby's Metaverse. It says here, coming from Natively Digital 1.2, the collectors, a collection of 53 NFTs from 19 collectors, such as Pranksy, OneJimmy.eth, and Paris Hilton. Ooh. So it says here, like Sotheby's rival Christie's, they've become increasingly involved in the NFT art market, and they're talking about some of the sales they've had in the summer, 17 million here, and more. So that gets attention. And indeed, I remember reading, would you believe, a piece in the Financial Times not long ago. That was quite a lengthy discourse, a narrative about NFTs. So it's got attention because of the big numbers. But you're right, gaming's a huge mega universe by comparison. And once that gets cracking with all of this, I mean, you're going to see something interesting.
So I'm going to North Dakota next month to give a talk to a group of rural electric companies
Cool.
about blockchain. And every day I wake up and read something, go, I got to change that presentation.
It's fast moving, right?
Yeah. Well, that'll
Good.
draw this episode of For Immediate Release to an end. Episode number 212 for October 2021. Our next episode, we will record on Saturday, November 20th, and release on Monday, the 22nd. I think I got that right.
Yeah.
And in the show notes for this episode, you will find the link to the YouTube live stream where you will be able to watch us record in real time and comment and participate in the episode. So be sure to check that out. We hope you will comment on the episode. Oh, before we get to commenting, don't forget our FIR Zoom chats on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. In fact, got an email from a listener who has never joined us before, who asked for the credential, who will probably be there this coming Thursday. If you would like to join us, this is just casual, unscripted chat about whatever we want to talk about for half an hour.
It's not recorded.
Not recorded. It's just chat. So if you need a break from work that time of day, it's 10 a.m. here on the West Coast.
6 p.m. here in the UK.
6 p.m. for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's pleasant. Usually you're there. Dan York is there. Chip Griffin has been a regular participant. Bill Spaniel. We've had Jeff Picar and Johnny. I can't remember Johnny's last name, from Brazil. It'll occur to me when we're done recording. But we've had a number of great conversations there. So.
Yeah. Tom Murphy's been in there.
Tom Murphy,
in the past.
Christy Goodman from Texas. So yeah, please send an email to us and we'll send you the credentials so you can drop in and join us for the conversation. As for leaving a comment, send an email to fircomments@gmail.com. You can attach up to a 3-minute audio file and we will play it. You can record that comment from the FIR website directly. There's a little tab on the right-hand side of the page that says voicemail. Just click it and record. You can record up to 90 seconds. If what you want to say takes more than 90 seconds, record a second one, and I will marry the two. Leave a comment directly on the show notes for this episode at firpodcastnetwork.com, or join us on the FIR community on Facebook, like Tom Murphy did. That's where we got his comment that we read earlier in the show. And as always, we appreciate your comments, your reviews, and your ratings wherever you listen to and obtain your podcasts. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, this growing universe of podcast hosting services. And with that, until next month, it'll be a 30 for this episode of For Immediate Release.
Okay, I'll hit stop.
Me too.
Yep. Cool. Great. So the usual, and you'll do the thing and I'll promote it.
Yes, I will definitely do the thing.
Okay. So good. Thank you. That was good. Good chat. Good topics. Really good.
Yeah, I thought so.
So we'll catch up on the show next time. I should be able to join the show this Thursday, but the following one not.
Right.
Probably the one after that, I'm not sure. It doesn't look likely either. We're actually traveling on Friday, a 300-mile drive up to northwest of England to a funeral of an uncle. My mother's.
Yeah, and I won't be. Yeah, I will not be on the one the week after next, and if you won't either, we should probably cancel that one.
Yeah, I think so. Good.
We'll talk about that on next week's.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
all right.
Just log. Yep. So thank you. I'll send you the recording momentarily, and there we go.
Have a good week.
You too.
See you Thursday.
Yep. See you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.